This tutorial, today I want to go over in some detail an SRS, a software requirement specification, and I want to show you a couple of resources today. I'm going to show you an actual guide to creating an SRS, and we want to go over two SRSs that students have done and some comments that teachers have made on that student work, so you can actually see what that student did right and what they did wrong, and hopefully between using the guide and also using the guide and also using the student work, that you'll come up with a really good SRS yourself. So the first thing I want you to do, and I want to make sure that you do by the end of this lesson and actually understand it, is download all of these documents. There's quite a few documents here to go through. I'm not going to get you to take notes during this video, unlike the last lessons, because I want you to, there's plenty of opportunities here to add notes and to do things later on. So this lesson is me going through some pretty vital stuff, some understandings, and what I want you to do is then I want you to go and have a look at some of these activities yourself. So I'll be going over this. So first thing is, make sure you download these straight after this video, because you'll be needing those. Right, so the first resource I want to take you through is a fantastic guide that was created by Claudia Graham, and she's created a guide to creating an SRS. Now that is actually on the website, so I want you to have a look at that. It's called Fact SRS. She's gone over what software requirement specification actually is. She's gone over that in quite a lot of detail, and she's giving you a bit of a guide of how to do different things. And I'm just going to skim through some of this. I'm not going to go over the whole document because it'll take too long. She's talked about the SRS as part of the analysis stage of the problem-solving methodology. It fulfills the purpose of breaking down a problem into component parts, and it helps in guiding what we do in the next stage, which is the design stage. Now, in the study design, she's got a link to the study design, what that actually says. I'll get you to read that and to understand that. Some of the hot key terms I've highlighted, functional and non-functional requirements, it highlights that. So she's talked about some of the very important things. An SRS accomplishes 4 goals. It provides feedback to the customer. It decomposes the problem into component parts. In other words, it breaks it down. It shows us how different things work, and we put it all together. We can create a document. It serves as an input to the design specification. So the next stage is design. It serves as a product validation check. She's got a link to another good website which gives another great guide to producing an SRS. She suggests that when you create an SRS, it should be correct, unambiguous, complete, consistent, ranked for importance or stability, verifiable, modifiable, and it should be traceable. And what she's done is she's actually given some terms in order to explain what all of those, she's actually given a meanings to all of those terms. So that should help you as well, so you can add all these terms to your glossary. She talks about, it really refers to what questions to solve a problem. So she's talked about determining the solution requirements, so what output to the solution is to provide, what data is needed to produce the output, what functions must the solution provide. She's broken down some of the functional and non-functional requirements. So functional is what the solution is required to do. Non-functional describes the attributes to the solution. So they include things like usability, reliability, portability, robustness, maintainability. We've went over some of these terms. It's important you understand these terms, and because they will come up in an exam. the better you understand these terms, the better your SRS will be, the better the mark will be that you'll get. She's talked about what some of the constraints will be. She's talked about a constraint as being a consideration when designing a solution. It's a limitation, it's something that we can't really go beyond. She's talked about these can include economic considerations such as cost and time, technical such as speed of processing. She's talked about social such as the level of expertise of the users, and ownership, and that comes also with copyright and usability. And to talk about ease of use of the solution. It's important we consider the scope of the solution. In other words, what are the boundaries or the parameters? She's broken this down as well. She's given one of the things you have to do is you have to talk about the purpose of the solution. You have to be able to articulate that. It has to be fairly clear. It's something you could explain maybe in 30 seconds. And here's an example of what this should be. She's talked about user characteristics, and she's given an example of that. Now, she's also broken this down, and my mouse has decided not to work properly. She's broken down, she's talked about what a constraint is. She's talked about what diagrams are. So I want you to help each other out. I want you to make sure you all understand these terms here, and you use this as a guide to producing your own SRS. Now I want to move on now to having a look at some student work that's been done in the past. These are two examples from 2015. First one is the one that I did, so a student submitted this. And what I did is I marked it, and that's also on the website as well. There was a SAC, and one of the conditions of the SAC is you had to produce an SRS. So here's the data collection method. So this student nominated interviewing current employees as a way to get information that would help us build the app, help us understand what's required, a questionnaire, and it's also extended observation of current users. And there's a bit of a paragraph here, and I've put some comments on what I thought about some of those responses. They've talked about what the purpose is, and that person gave a definition of what the purpose is. Provide a short description of the software being used and for its purpose. So there's an illustration here. And again, I've got lots of comments here. I went over that. Items within the scope. Items not within the scope. So we talked about that. Operating environment. So this student actually gave an explanation of what the operating environment is. Went down a bit further. The student provided 3 diagrams of how the solution could work. So the first one is a use case, a context diagram, and a data flow diagram. They then started to outline all the different functional requirements. And then they looked at the non-functional requirements. So here are these key terms: user-friendliness, robustness, maintainability, portability, response rates. And I've got some comments on that. Then they looked at the constraints. Quite harsh. I gave the student 58% for that. So if you can do better than this, if you give me a response better than this student's response, well, you will get a higher mark than that. So that's my response. Another response came from another teacher, probably in a bit more detail than me. Again, this is on the website for you to look at. And this, again, was a response to an outcome that students did, a SAC I should say. Again, we've had a look at data collection methods. And this teacher is Selena Dennis, who is a fantastic software development teacher. And she gave me some advice on how to do this. This student actually had the purpose. Again, it's articulated that, a short description, what's within the scope, what item wasn't in the scope, in other words, what you will not do, what's outside the boundary, what the operating environment is, so there's lots of detailed analysis of that. Here the student provided different diagrams. She talked about the functional requirements, some illustration of how that works. and having a look at the non-functional requirements. And again, these terms: user friendliness, response rates, robustness, reliability, maintainability, and there was an explanation of the constraints. So, just to recap, what I want you to do with all this information. First thing I want you to do, make sure you download all these documents. Now I've created, there's a link to a glossary that you need to fulfill and need to complete from a couple of lessons ago. One student can create, not 2 or 3 or 4, maybe one student could create a Kahoots we could do next week to make sure you understand how an SRS works. Continue working on your own SRS, and you need to then arrange a meeting with your client and teacher to start getting some information to inform you about how to build your own app. So this is what I want you to do, and the activities I want you to do for the SRS today. Okay, help each other out. Make sure everyone can understand, and I look forward to seeing your work.